On this episode of China Uncensored, move over global war on terror. Now it's the people's war on terror. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. China is a land of diversity. There are 56 officially recognized ethnic groups, although about 92% of people are from the Han ethnic group. But the important thing is that they all live in harmony under the loving guidance of the Chinese central government. Like Tibetans, those rooftop snipers are there to keep everyone safe. Same goes for the lesser talked about groups like the Uyghurs, a Turkic minority in the Xinjiang region. Thousands of heavily armed troops have marched through cities in Xinjiang over the past week in mass military demonstrations. As the region's deputy Communist Party chief says, it's to show the caring and strong leadership of the Communist Party Central Committee. Also to show that all separatist activities and all terrorists shall be smashed to pieces. How will they do that? With the powerful fist of the People's Democratic Dictatorship, of course. You know about the Chinese military's benevolence in Tibet. People in the West are pretty familiar with the political situation there, thanks in part to Gwyneth Paltrow-era Brad Pitt and notorious foam visor lover, the Dalai Lama. Well, the same kind of Chinese military benevolence happens on a regular basis in Xinjiang, too. Xinjiang is a giant region in western China with roughly the land area of Alaska. Like Alaska, it's mostly uninhabitable. And they can also see Russia from their backyards. But unlike Alaska, Xinjiang's reality shows have never really taken off. Sand road donkeys, truly an underappreciated gem. But the ethnic Uyghurs living in Xinjiang don't get much media attention compared to Tibetans. Why? Well, they don't have a lovable religious leader to be their spokesperson. And it might also be because they're Muslim. Non-Muslim extremists generally, mostly moderate Muslims. But the Communist Party doesn't like moderate Islam any more than they like moderate Buddhism. Any system of belief in a higher power is seen as a threat. So how to solve this problem? For decades, the Communist Party has flooded the region with non-Muslim ethnic Han Chinese, which has now increased to 38% of Xinjiang's population. And the CCP has recently implemented a loving, big brother system of mass surveillance like grid management, face recognition software, and big data analytics. And of course, who could forget all of the things the CCP has banned in Xinjiang at various times because they're too dangerous? Beards, veils, traditional clothing, the internet, and even for civil servants, fasting during the holy month of Ramadan. Hey, fasting is dangerous. You're not yourself when you're hungry. I'm looking at you, Betty White. Now, it used to be that Uyghurs who were not fully supportive of their benevolent communist overlords were called splitists, the same term used for Tibetans. But after 9/11, the Communist Party adopted a more politically savvy label: terrorists. According to Beijing Cream, everything from the theft of sheep to a land seizure protest to a fight with knives can now be labeled as terrorism as long as Uyghurs and Han are involved in the conflict. It's led to what state-run media are calling the people's war on terrorism. And if your neighbor turns you in for being a terrorist sympathizer, which they get a reward for, by the way, you might find yourself subjected to, shall we say, enhanced interrogation techniques. Unless you then turn in your other neighbors for being terrorists. I mean, that technique worked so well during the Cultural Revolution. That's why there's not a single counter-revolutionary left in China today. Fortunately, the party has put up colorful propaganda to educate the Uyghurs about potentially terrorist activities, like sharing banned information on video CDs, or installing a satellite dish. News is dangerous. And don't wear veils, you'll be much happier without. And if those doves become a problem, why, there's always friendly soldiers nearby to shoot them down. So if you see a group of Uyghurs happily reading party propaganda in front of a Chinese flag, you can bet it has something to do with the Xinjiang party chief saying, "We shall load our guns, draw our swords from their sheaths, throw hard punches, and relentlessly beat and strike hard without flinching at terrorists." all under the watchful eye of the 40,000 security cameras set up in Xinjiang streets, public places, and mosques. And now the latest news, they're going to use GPS surveillance to keep track of every single car in the region. This is not to say there are no real terrorist problems in Xinjiang. It's just that when the persecution of Muslims in Xinjiang becomes severe, I imagine that Islamic extremists around the world will have an easier time convincing otherwise peaceful Uyghurs that violently rising up against the Chinese government is their only option. But don't worry though, Chinese leader Xi Jinping has a plan. Build a wall of bronze and iron to fight against terrorism. A wall? Well, this sounds like a job for Matt Damon. So what do you think of the People's War on Terrorism in Xinjiang? Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. See you next time.